Now, Walz is weird, but he disguises it under the costume of phony compassion, a fake politician who masks destructive ideas under the guise of empathy. At a 2017 town hall, he implied 10-year-old boys should be able to invade girls' bathrooms because it's all—
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser, you know, I mean, the guy's a—
You think you've heard this story? Think again. This political circus didn't just take a wrong turn. It crash-landed straight into chaos. Gutfeld and Donald Trump, that wild tag team of trouble, joined forces to roast Tim Walz like it was the 4th of July, and he was the main course. One moment Walz was delivering calm, carefully rehearsed speeches, and the next, bam, he was dodging flaming sarcasm and ego bombs like a politician trapped in a dunk tank. What triggered this political firestorm? Why has Minnesota suddenly become the national punchline of American politics? Spoiler alert, it's more humiliating than karaoke night at Mar-a-Lago. And yes, that's saying something.
Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away.
I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, who's he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with him.
Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign. When reached for comment, Walz yelled, "Hey, look over there," and then ran away.
I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, who's he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with.
They say real leadership is about having a vision, but Tim Walz must have misread that memo and thought it said television, because the only screen this guy seems obsessed with is the one showing his next dramatic press conference. Every time something goes wrong, he points fingers at gravity, sunlight, or maybe even Gutfeld for good measure. He's running Minnesota like it's a video game on nightmare mode. Every disaster turned on and no cheat codes in sight. Think potholes are bad? Wait till you see his policies. They're deeper, messier, and perfectly positioned to destroy everything in their path.
Walz, it's hard to even bring him up. He has a resting snitch face. You know? He forfeited his man card during COVID and the riots. And you're right. And also, at that diner, of course, he left early. So don't you find it weird that for a terrifying threat to democracy that Trump is, not a single interviewer in his history has approached him?
Under Tim Walz, Minnesota has become the political version of a frozen casserole left in the fridge since 2020. It's bland, outdated, and probably radioactive by now, yet somehow he's still trying to serve it again with a fresh side of excuses. Meanwhile, Gutfeld, armed with the sarcasm of a raccoon on espresso, and Trump, wielding the subtlety of a wrecking ball strapped to a monster truck, teamed up to roast this walking PR disaster. And honestly, they barely had to lift a finger. The material wrote itself.
Fraud. Yeah, this one's a core. We saw just recently Donald Trump's executive order to make it more difficult, specifically to women, trying to make it more difficult for women to be able to vote. We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote.
Wait, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems? But it's further proof that the most dangerous thing for a leftist is a follow-up question, which is why you never—
This takedown didn't even need preparation. The jokes practically delivered themselves. When you've got a guy who locked down his entire state so tightly during the pandemic that even Wi-Fi signals needed a travel permit, you'd expect something to improve. But nope. The roads still look like they were pummeled by asteroids, taxes are climbing so high they might need oxygen masks, and crime don't even start. Minneapolis under Walz feels like a live-action video game. No reset button, no upgrades, and graphics somehow worse than reality. It's chaos without control.
I'm especially talking about these old white guys who seem to disappoint us on a regular basis in this country.
Dude. You're an old white guy. And you're right, you are a huge disappointment. I guess hating himself is the first thing he's nailed.
And what's his grand solution? More committees, more studies, and endless advisory panels, like trying to stop a flood with duct tape and optimism. He treats real problems as if they're minor glitches in a PowerPoint presentation. His entire leadership strategy seems to be, if I ignore it long enough, maybe it'll fix itself, or unionize and demand a raise. It's not leadership, it's procrastination wearing a suit and pretending to govern.
Are people misreading Tim's odd greeting? The man of the hour, Tim Walz, brings us our second video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it. I want to see this in slow motion. You'll see Walz extends his hand to his wife. She grabs it. They shake. He pulls her close and then goes in for that non-friction hug, all the while still shaking her hand. I wish there was a word to describe that. Oh yeah, weird.
Then Trump storms in with the chaotic energy Minnesota never wanted, but absolutely deserved. He takes one look at Walz's record and bursts out laughing, like someone just handed him a trophy for most useless governor in the Midwest. Sure, Trump has his own messes, but next to Walz, he looks like Winston Churchill in a MAGA hat. At least Trump does things loud, wild, and sometimes incomprehensible, but action nonetheless. Meanwhile, Walz governs like a substitute teacher who's lost a lesson plan. Lots of noise, zero control. The only thing moving fast in Minnesota right now is the flood of people and businesses packing U-Hauls and fleeing the state like it's a reverse Oregon Trail. No one's dying of dysentery. They're being crushed by taxes and policies that make bankruptcy look like a vacation.
I think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz.
Let's talk about business, because under Timmy's reign, Minnesota became the place where companies go to suffocate under rules so strict they start missing California. One poor small business owner tried to open a lemonade stand and ended up needing a zoning permit, a carbon offset plan, and a full-blown environmental audit just to sell lemonade. You'd think a former teacher would know how to run schools, but instead he's turned classrooms into political experiments. Algebra? Optional. Pronoun quizzes? Mandatory. The only thing rising faster than confusion in Minnesota schools is the number of parents wondering what happened to actual education.
On Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste?
We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them.
So, wait, you lost because you weren't woke enough? That's like telling Joy Behar she's not eating enough Doritos. That's like Jasmine Crockett saying, I gotta black this up.
Meanwhile, Trump just folds his arms and watches Walz stumble through press briefings like a dad trying to set up Wi-Fi without the manual. And Gutfeld, he's having the time of his life, turning Walz into a running punchline that never stops giving. He once joked, watching Walz lead is like watching a squirrel operate a forklift. It's cute until you see the wreckage. Walz talks big about climate plans, then hops into a gas-guzzling SUV like it's nothing. He praises workers' rights until unions actually demand results. Then suddenly, it's not the right time. His pandemic response was pure theater. 1 minute quoting science like gospel. The next closing bars at 10 p.m. as if COVID clocks out early. Even Trump couldn't resist roasting the madness. Especially when Walz kept liquor stores open but shut down gyms. Says a lot, doesn't it?
The tampon king gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this.
And somehow through all this chaos, Walz keeps a straight face. He really believes no one's noticed the house burning down behind him. When crime spikes in Minneapolis, he starts talking about community engagement. He's pitching a yoga retreat to a SWAT team. People aren't watching Netflix anymore. They're glued to crime tracking apps. His economic plan, more like a blueprint for keeping Minnesota's economy trapped in a flooded basement. He wants to tax the wealthy, which in this state basically means anyone who managed to pay rent this month. Gutfeld isn't just roasting Walz, he's slow grilling him over an open flame. And watching Trump and Gutfeld actually agree on something is wild enough. Yet every time Walz gets hit with criticism, he doubles down like a desperate gambler on his last hand. Question his budget, he throws more money. Ask about safety, he throws slogans like confetti. At this point, he probably thinks motivational posters can fix a crime wave.
Quote, as a teacher, my number one responsibility in the classroom is the safety, security, and belongingness of every single child in that room. These are children my son's age, a fourth grader, a 10-year-old who just wants to go to the bathroom. And their identity is they are male or female, and they just go in that bathroom and use it. End quote. Sounds so folksy, you know? Belongingness. Yeah, they'll be belonging in therapy with this guy.
Remember when Minneapolis flirted with dismantling its police department? That was Walz's moment to lead, but instead of stepping up, he tiptoed around it like a parent too scared to say no to a toddler. The result? Total chaos. Crime exploded, confusion spread, and the city started looking like Gotham with worse lighting. Gutfeld's segments on Walz became therapy sessions for Minnesotans desperate to hear someone say what they're all thinking, that their governor can't even organize a sock drawer. Trump didn't miss the opportunity either, dragging out every failure, every pothole, even every awkward haircut Walz has had. And when it comes to the budget, disaster doesn't even begin to describe it. Taxpayer money flew out the door faster than excuses, pouring into pet projects and endless studies. When Walz promised bold action on infrastructure, people got hopeful until they realized it just meant hiring consultants to make PowerPoints about potholes. No wonder Gutfeld compared Minnesota's roads to Mad Max.
So this is Governor Walz. There he is. Do you know we're the same age? I know. I know. He looks like the founder of a law firm specializing in personal injury. He looks like the guy at church who remarries 1 month after his wife mysteriously passes away. He looks like the high school football coach who made sure everyone showered.
And we haven't even gotten to Walz's war on landlords. His rent control idea sounded great on Twitter, but in real life, it was like evicting common sense. Small landlords bailed, big ones hiked prices, and renters were left freezing, literally and financially. His brilliant fix, a task force, which in politics means 4 months of meetings just to define the word problem. Trump and Gutfeld didn't even need to jump in this time. The mess collapsed on its own. The state that gave us Prince, Bob Dylan, and 10,000 lakes is now being run like a college dorm, with no RA in sight. Gutfeld joked that Walz leads with PowerPoint slides and confusion as a management strategy, and honestly, he's not wrong. Minnesota's transportation is a full-blown joke. Projects delayed, budgets blown, and results nowhere in sight. He tried launching new rail lines, but forgot one small thing. Trains need to exist. Even Trump's infamous infrastructure week made more sense. Walz's own government fleet spews more fumes than a NASCAR race while he brags about climate goals. At this point, even Trump's jets might be cleaner.